Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation. My name is Harmon Dial. I'm having to intro the show today because my good pal and co-host David Quadrelli is devastated by the news of Tyler Myers being traded. Quads, I know he's obviously happy for the return the Canucks got and knows that it's a good trade, but as one of the OG truthers, seeing Myers go, I know is a heartbreaking moment for you.
Thank you for your thoughts and sensitivity during this time. Yeah, I've been looking back on Myers, man. I've been looking back on Tyler Myers and just kind of in all of the chaos, for lack of a better word, of this season and the disappointment of this season and the knowledge that the Canucks needed to make this trade, right? You're sad to see. I'm sad. I'm sad to see Tyler Myers go. And it's a great trade for the Canucks. When we talk about it from the analyst perspective, it's a phenomenal trade for the Canucks. Getting a second and a fourth for Tyler Myers, you can't really ask for a better return in a Tyler Myers trade. And again, this is a guy that we were talking about when we were previewing our trades and the trades we thought were going to happen. We were previewing all this like a month ago. We were just saying, oh, well, no move clause, got the young family here. He's not moving. He's 36. He's not going to waive his no move clause. Tyler Myers, great Canuck through and through. Deserved a bit better, I think, in this market than he got all the time, from myself included. You know what? From myself included, I'll put myself in that conversation as well. He's still looking out for the Canucks. He's done more to rebuild the Canucks than a lot of people have. So, yeah, he will be missed, and I'm just preparing an ode to Tyler Myers, and I'll share it when I'm ready, but I'm not ready just yet.
I'm really excited for that ode. But yeah, in the meantime, and I was reminiscing on, I think the highlight of Myers' time as a Canuck, the one play that will stand in Canucks lore is that hit. And I tweeted this out again this morning once the trade happened in 2021 when he absolutely demolished, just clobbered Duncan Keith in that 2021-22 season. And then I can't remember who it was, but an Oiler steps in to fight Myers in defensive Keith. And then Tyler Myers just beats the absolute wheels off the guy. And it's just one of the most fun 10 to 15 second sequences I've seen. And it, like, the best part about the hit too wasn't just that Keith had no idea it was coming and it absolutely destroyed him. And of course, the history there is all those years ago, Daniel Sedin elbowed Daniel Sedin with a really dirty hit that gave
Duncan Keith
Daniel
Sedin,
the concussion. Not only did Keith not see it coming, but it was also such a clean hit. There was nothing you could get mad at him for. And then again, to see him just immediately beat the wheels off a guy, just absolute rock star stuff.
And one of my best memories is this was back when I was a young beat reporter and I was excited to go to the rink and talk to players. Myers was doing a press conference. I don't know if you remember this. I will never forget it. It's clipped. It's on my Instagram at Quads at the Rink if you want to go find the clip. I literally asked Myers, I was like, have you thought about the reaction you might get because of that hit? Because it was their first game back at home after that. And it was morning skate and he came out and talked. I was like, have you thought about the reaction you might get? And he just laughed and he's like, no, not really. But he tried to downplay it, but he's definitely aware. Great Canuck through and through is really the takeaway I have. He should be absolutely celebrated. And I mean, yeah. Do you want to hear my ode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, you know what I just realized? We haven't actually said what the trade was. 2027 second round pick, 2029 fourth round pick for Tyler Myers. Canucks retain 50%. Let me prep my ode. Let me prep it. I still got some stuff to do on it, but the Canucks retain on this deal, Harm, and that's something we talked about. And when we said, okay, we would like to see them get creative to see how they can juice returns. It certainly seems like that's what they did here by retaining.
Yeah, and broadly speaking, I think it's a win-win deal where, from the Stars' perspective, to land Myers at $1.5 million and essentially raise the floor for the right side of their defense, where on the second pair right now, they're using Nils Lundqvist, and while he's been better lately with Thomas Harley, ultimately this is a player that has routinely ended up in the coaching staff's doghouse in within Dallas. And I know it's a new staff now with Glenn Gulletson behind the bench, but with how small Lundqvist is and the defensive inconsistencies, there's a decent chance that you'll run into either round one or round two where one defensive mistake where he gets bulldozed over by a bigger forward, and all of a sudden Lundqvist is going to be on, you're only playing 7 to 8 minutes a night territory. And if Lundqvist can't play in a second pair role, then you're leaning on Ilya Lyubushkin perhaps in that spot, or Alex Petrovic, and both those players just should not be in that capacity. So while I look at Myers, and I think he's a number 5 defenseman at this stage of his career. I know he struggled this year, but I think a lot of those challenges are environmental based with how woeful the situation has been in Vancouver. With more help around him, I think he's very serviceable. I think in a perfect world, he's a luxury third pair defenseman for you and absolutely crush minutes further down the lineup where he's maybe playing easier matchups and taking on a more manageable workload than he has been in Vancouver. But even if you have to use him in a second pair role with Thomas Harley, right? You pair him and insulate him with an elite defender in Harley. That's something he can at least passably hold down, which I don't think you can say for their other options like Lyubushkin, like Petrovic. And the acquisition cost is reasonable. And that's the other part from Dallas's perspective is a month ago when Rasmus Andersson was available, the Stars couldn't really afford to be in on Andersson because they're without their first rounder this year. They're without their first rounder in 2028 because of the Mikko Rantanen deal. And crucially, they also have needs up front. That their top 9 situation because Sagan tore his ACL, because they lost Marchment, Dodonov, Mikhail Granlund compared to their playoff run last year. They need to make 1 or 2 adds up front as well. And so just looking at it from that perspective, they needed an economical solution to shore up the right side. And that's where I really like the fit for Myers there. And from the Canucks standpoint as well, to pick up a second and a fourth, I think it's a market value return for a player of Myers' profile, right? It's the exact same return that Luke Schenn went for at last year's deadline. It's slightly more than what Murphy commanded in that trade with Edmonton, although the difference there is Myers has the extra year of term left. But where the Canucks deserve credit is, unlike Schenn, for example, Myers had the no move clause, and they had to work around and navigate around that. And we've seen around the NHL plenty of examples where players with NMCs, sometimes the teams have to accept a lesser return just because of how much control the player had over the situation.
You're probably fired up to talk to Irf tomorrow, hey?
I mean, when he floated the idea of the Canucks maybe having to take a 3rd or a 4th round pick for Myers, yeah, I felt very strongly that the Canucks had to hold out at least for a 2nd round pick. And I actually gave that exact same scenario. I was like, if Stars call me and think that they're getting Myers for a 4th round pick just because he wants to go there and they think they have a lot of leverage, I said that I would tell them to get lost if I was the Canucks.
Maybe add a second. Tell them to add a second.
Yeah, tell them to add a second. Yeah, I texted after the show that day, and it was all in good spirit. We had a good chuckle about how heated we got about Myers versus Schenn, and we agreed that we probably spent way too much time debating that.
Which is what I said. And the younger me would have tried to egg you both on, would have tried to keep it going, but I was desperately trying to end that conversation. I was like, guys, this is uncomfortably weird. I don't know why we're talking about this so much. Irf's going to join the show tomorrow. Him and David Pagnotta are going to have the DFO Rundown Insider Edition going live Thursday night. So it's a trade deadline preview Thursday at 4 p.m. Jacob, technical producer Jacob Wazar, you're producing that show.
I sure am. It'll be fun. And we talked about it probably about an hour, but if a big trade happens during the show, we'll keep it live. And obviously there's a bunch of Canucks that could be traded. So definitely tune in. And if any Canuck gets traded tomorrow, like after Convo, be sure to head over to Daily Faceoff. Irf and Dave will be there to break it all down.
Okay. You want to hear my ode?
Yeah.
Do you think odes should rhyme? This is a good question. I think they should rhyme. So there's some rhymes in this.
I don't know whether they should or not. I've never written.
I also freestyled most of this just for the record. I got like 4 lines written down because I tried to write it and like I ain't using like Jacob, give me an AI one too. I want to see if I can make a better short ode than AI. Tell AI, you go to your AI
I'll go
bot,
do
Jacob.
that.
You tell it it's got 6 lines because mine's 6 lines long. Okay, it gets 6 lines, and let's see if it can write a better ode than me.
Anything from the heart's better.
Mine's from the heart. I wrote this down moments ago. Ready? And as we do this, Jacob's playing a Tyler Myers highlight reel, and yes, the Duncan Keith hit is on there too. All right. Oh, towering pine of the blue line. Pine is a tree. That's not part of it. That's just me ad-libbing. Oh, gentle giraffe of chaos and grace. Today we gather with tear-streaked cheeks and dramatically clenched fists to bid farewell to our long-limbed legend. You patrolled the blue line, sometimes looking the wrong way, and we'll miss you for that. Farewell, sweet prince of the Pacific.
That's actually really good. That's better than I expected. Pretty graceful with the language, and yeah, that was funny. Honestly, better than I expected. I was expecting a bit of a train wreck, but that wasn't as cringy as I thought it was going to be.
I literally wrote this in the time that that's why I got you to open the show, is that I needed you to stall so that I could write that. I needed to figure out what rhymed with blue line, and I came up with pine. That was the honestly big hurdle.
Pretty good. Pretty
Thank
good.
You.
All right. Do you want the AI version?
Sure.
Yeah, boo.
It's worse, right? It has to be worse. I'm actually pretty proud of that.
This is bad. This is
okay,
bad.
good. Read it. AI can't replace humans. Write it down.
Oh,
Jacob.
Tyler Myers' long reach and longer stride. You patrolled the blue line with quiet pride. Through chaos and change in Vancouver nights, you battled in corners and cleared our sights. Thank you for the minutes, the grit, the fight. A towering Canuck, forever part of our white and blue.
White and oh my gosh, that is cheeks. Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
I
1 out of 10.
Yeah,
1 out of 10. Yeah. Someone in the chat said I wrote mine with AI. That's how you know I didn't write mine with AI because it's different.
And the funniest part was they could have kept the rhyme if they just said forever part of our blue and white, but it didn't for whatever reason. It was right there. It was right there for it. Wide open net, and they McKinnoned it. So,
all right, we got a lot to get to. Shout out to Tyler Myers. Shout out to the Canucks for making that trade. Now, we already talked about retaining. We talked about juicing the return. 50%. The Canucks now have 1 retention slot left. You think they use it before Friday, Harm?
I imagine they'll have to. If Kane's moved, you're gonna have to retain. No one's taking his full contract on. So I would, yeah, I'd hope so. And if you, I'm trying to look, if you gotta retain, I was gonna say if there's no market for Kane, right? Because Dollywall was floating out the possibility. I think I saw that maybe in a worst case scenario, no one will even take Kane on at a retained price.
Buddy, Alvin floated that out today. We're going to get to that later, but like it ain't just Dollywall. Alvin floated out that it might be hard to trade Kane.
Yeah, so in that case, if you're not retaining on Kane because there's no market for him, then you at least got to retain on, like, if it helps you juice Blueger's return and he goes from 1.8 to 900K. That's, I think, a value add if there's a team that's pressed right up against the ceiling. I think they should try and find a way. Now, maybe there's a scenario where Blueger's cap it at 1.8 is already so low that if you retain 50%, it's not really going to juice the return. But I would hope that they find a way to use that last retention slot ahead of the deadline for one of their pending UFAs.
We have some audio. We have some stuff from Alvin. We also have some stuff from Boeser on Myers. I think the Alvin conversation kind of we'll get to what Alvin had to say about Myers, but he also talked about kind of previewing the trade deadline a bit. So I don't want to go too far away from Myers by pulling up all this Alvin stuff, but I want to get to a super chat. It's a $5 donation from Adam Voth, who's pointing out that Earth was wrong in that conversation that you two had, which we're gonna take our victory. You're gonna take a victory lap on Earth tomorrow, for sure. You are. A $5 donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. We appreciate it. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by spreading breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Okay, I wanted to get to this. Brock Boeser talking about Tyler Myers. Jacob, we have this. Brock Boeser talking.
Yeah, we have him talking about the trade and talking about how Myers handled himself this week.
Perfect segue. Let's do it. Let's hear from Brock Boeser earlier today.
Obviously, he's one of the oldest guy on our team, and he's such a good leader, such a good human being, and he comes to rink every day, and he's a pro, and sets a good example for the young guys. So we're going to miss him, but he deserves a chance to win a cup.
What sets him apart as a person, Brock? We know about the player, but there's something about Tyler, whether he's working with the younger guys or trying to keep the room going. What are you going to remember the most about that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, he's just such a kind, caring dude, and like I said, he came to the rink every single day. Good days or bad days, he always had a smile on his face, always in the gym, always working hard, always working on his game, shooting pucks on the ice, and that's something that will stick with me. He was just one of those veteran guys that was just so good to everyone. I think kind of how he handled everything in the last week just proved to me everything that I was thinking. Like, he handled it so good, and he showed up to the rink every day, still, everyone knowing he's probably getting traded, still working on his game, still in the gym, still communicating with guys, still acting like he's here, and I think that's really important.
A pro, just like a pro's pro through and through. And it's funny because in normal times, as much as we joke around and I read Odes and everything, in normal time, like, you would think, okay, Tyler Myers is the guy you want around this team. Like, his team's headed for they're already in pretty treacherous waters. This is a guy you want around. But when that offer comes across, and this is kind of what we talked about, right? As soon as Myers got sat out, I know I said it, was they got to be looking at least a third round pick, maybe a second, if they're telling Tyler Myers, like, hey, we're going to hold you out and you have to think about this as we kind of approach the deadline. And yeah, they got a good return. They got a good return for Tyler Myers. I did want to add this as well, just as we kind of put the bow on Myers. We'll hear from Alvin as well and talk more about what Alvin had to say. But just as we put a bow on Myers was on Donnie and Dolly today. As soon as he was traded, he gets on Donnie and Dolly. But anyways, so he goes on Donnie and Dolly today. And I do want to at least clarify this because Myers said it. He did not say no to going to Detroit. He just wanted to see if other offers were going to come in. Dallas came through. So again, when you wonder about leverage from Dallas, right? Like, the Canucks are probably able to say, like, hey, we don't have to take your offer because he's not just going to go to you. Like, Myers might have ended up going to Detroit if Dallas never bumped up their offer. But Alvin said he was on the Burrard Street Bridge today when he got the message that Dallas was coming in with an offer that was going to work out for them. So, Canucks get a good return for Tyler Myers. It's their first trade of the deadline. And Harm, how often did we say this team needs a win? Not on the ice. This team needs a win. Like, they've just been getting their teeth kicked in from just an everything happening with them perspective. Nothing good has happened for the Canucks this year. It feels like this is a good thing. This is a win for them. Like, this is a good rebuilding trade. This is good news. It's nice to have a good news story about the Canucks.
For sure. And importantly, they're targeting draft picks rather than young players, reclamation projects, a guy that's a former first-round pick, a prospect that's 21 years old that doesn't seem to have a lot of upside. I think that was one of the concerns that we've had with this organization for a while is, all right, even if they're selling off some of these players, are they going to do it for draft picks, which I think we'd all prefer, or are they going to try and expedite the process of turning things around? And so we'd rather players that are further along the development cycle. And again, the issue with that is you're usually then betting on players that haven't been progressing that well, or betting on players that don't have a particularly high ceiling. Whereas I think the draft capital is always the cleanest way to go about selling. It's the most optimal, efficient way to extract value back. That's important. That wasn't a given. It should be a given for a rebuilding team, but I'm encouraged to see them stockpiling picks. And you're now at a point where between this year's draft and next year's draft, cumulatively, they've got 7 picks within the first 2 rounds. That's the start of building your prospect pool back up. It's not the embarrassing pool of riches that, let's say, the Pittsburgh Penguins have with their picks, or that the Chicago Blackhawks had, or some of these other organizations necessarily. But it is at least a really good start. And now you just hope that moving forward over the next, ahead of the deadline into the offseason, that they continue adding to that stockpile.
All right, there's been a couple trades. People are reacting to trades. I love that the trades start happening as the show goes. We'll get to those and anyone else. People wondering why we're not talking about other trades. They're not Canucks trades. We'll get to them and anyone else. Let's hear from Patrick Alvin. Let's hear from the Canucks general manager who spoke to reporters after morning skates. Nate, don't forget the Canucks play this evening against Carolina Hurricanes. I want to get to this one. This is Alvin kind of talking about the difficulty in the lack of a market and trying to find trade partners right now.
I don't know. I think last year, you look at, I don't think there was a whole lot of trades leading up to the last 2 days. I'm sure other teams are looking at their options, what's out there, and you see the Eastern Conference there that's still fairly wide open. So there is different discussions. I do think that there's one thing with the cap, but I also looking at teams that the roster spots, including ourselves, roster spot is an issue too. You have players on your roster. We had carried a couple extra here that haven't played as of lately, and I think that's something again around the league.
What'd you make that?
I mean, we've seen a couple of pretty giant trades within hours of that happening, with Parayko and Weegar, a couple of bigger ticket contracts with a lot of term left beyond the season that got moved for some pretty significant hauls. I do, to some degree, understand that making deals ahead of this deadline is a little bit more complicated because there aren't, for example, you can't use third-party brokers to get double retention on deals. And so you're having to get a little bit more creative on the cap front, and it's harder for buyers to maybe absorb certain contracts. I understand that part, and the playoff cap as well. Pierre LeBrun wrote a piece at The Athletic yesterday about how factoring that in and just not being able to do a lot of the LTIR shenanigans from years past has added a degree of complication. But I don't know if I fully agree, for example, with the sentiment that in the Eastern Conference, it's still wide open. Is it, though? You look at the Eastern Conference wildcard race, and you're starting to see some stratification emerge. And it's not to say that whatever teams that are in a playoff spot right now are locks, but a month ago, you could say it was wide open. But now you're starting to see certain teams fall off of it, right? For instance, the Bruins hold the last wildcard spot. The Blue Jackets are the closest team behind them. They're 3 points back. And then you get to Washington, who's 4 points back and have played 3 extra games. And then next is Ottawa, and Ottawa's 6 points back, right? So there's, Florida has completely fallen out of the race. New Jersey's completely fallen out of the race. Toronto's completely fallen out of the race. Philadelphia, even though they've won 3 straight, is basically out. And so I don't know. I think there is a pretty, outside of Columbus that still has a big decision to make on what they're going to do, there actually is stratification happening in the Eastern Conference playoff race, which I think will further be solidified with the last, game or two that teams are going to play before the official deadline on Friday, even in the West, right? Nashville has waved the white flag and decided that they're going to sell, and Winnipeg has no shot at making it. I think you're starting to actually get a pretty clear sense of who the buyers and sellers are actually going to be. And as we've seen this morning, it's been a busy day of trade so far.
Just in time too, right? Just in time that we're seeing this. Unfortunately, the trade deadline seems like it's getting here 2 days early, but we're hoping that there's still going to be some fireworks on Friday.
What I will say, specifically with Parayko and Weegar, and even with Tyler Myers, these are players that weren't necessarily expected to be available, especially in the case of a Mackenzie Weegar. A lot of people were talking about, or Justin Falk could be the best right shot defenseman that's available on the market. And he certainly was on a lot of trade boards. But then this is where I think we're realizing that buyers, rather than settling and paying lower prices for mediocre players, are more willing to pay big prices for established players, right? It seemed like Calgary didn't have to move Mackenzie Weegar. But if the offer is serious enough and if it's strong enough, then sure, they're saying, all right, we'll give you Mackenzie Weegar. Same thing with the Vancouver Canucks. They didn't have to move Tyler Myers ahead of this deadline. And a lot of us didn't expect Myers to get moved. But when the market and the offers are strong enough that you're going, all right, we can get a second round pick for him plus something else for Tyler Myers, then that's suddenly something you have to consider. Same thing with Colton Parayko. The Blues didn't have to move off Colton Parayko. But when it was, all right, we can get Radim Murtka, who was drafted 9th overall just this past year, and a first round pick out of it, sure, we'll go ahead and trade Colton Parayko. So it's interesting to see that some buyers are willing to pay steep but fair prices for more established players that otherwise maybe wouldn't have been available, rather than settling for, hey, we're going to pay, third round picks for players that are marginal upgrades. Teams are taking swings here.
Maybe the Canucks should trade Philip Hronek at these prices.
Well, this is where I agree that it's maybe not ahead of this deadline, but in the offseason, again, the hypothetical that I've laid out for a long time has been, you end up with 3rd overall. And if you're in a spot where you're drafting Keaton Verhoff or Chase Reed 3rd overall, you're adding him, and all of a sudden your right shot pipeline has Verhoff and Verlander, and the prices look like this, where Parayko went for a guy that was drafted top 10 just this past year and another first round pick. If that's the market for a right shot defenseman of that caliber, then yeah, I'd be really tempted to try and cash in on him at an all-time high, even though I really value the idea of having Hronek around to mentor the young defenseman. But this is where also, because they moved off Myers, does that decrease the likelihood of them shopping Hronek in the summer? I think the answer to that question is yes.
Do we know the return on the Weegar trade just yet? I know I said we'd save it for anyone else, but we're kind of transitioning pretty seamlessly into it. So Colton Parayko to the Sabres, Mackenzie Weegar to Utah. Do we know the return for Weegar yet? I'm asking you, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. I have not seen anything yet. Elliot Friedman was the one that reported it about half an hour ago. Closing in, waiting approval, but have not seen the return yet. Yeah, and that's that's the last thing he tweeted. Hopefully by the time we get to anyone else, we know what the return is from Utah.
Okay. All right. Do you want to get to anyone else, Arm? Do you have anything you'd like to say about the Canucks versus Hurricanes tonight?
Colton Parayko as well. He's 32 years old. All right. You compare that to Philip Hronek. Hronek's what, 28?
Oh, yeah.
Check it. 28, so 4 years younger, and he signed through 2032. Parayko, now it's worth mentioning, is a bigger defenseman, but man, for a guy that's 4 years younger, and again, in that trade, the main chip isn't the first round pick, right? Presumably, whatever, if it's a first round pick this year, it's going to be a late first that Buffalo surrenders. The main chip is, hey, you got a guy that was drafted top 10 literally this past summer. That's an elite prospect that you're adding to your pipeline. Yeah, that's enticing. But again, because they moved off of Myers, that makes me, and because we've heard all the captaincy rumors, that makes me more inclined to believe that, hey, even if the Canucks end up in a position where they're drafting a Verhoff or Chase Reed, that they're more likely to want to hold on to Hronek.
Jacob just put something in our chat that I want to talk about. If the Flames get Tej Iginla for Mackenzie Weegar, Calgary's going to explode. There's no way. There's no way. Like, Iginla's hasn't he put up like 80 points? 71 points in 39 games for Kelowna this year.
I know that there's no way, but also like if they pull that off with a new arena coming,
Oh yeah.
like the house that Iginla built, but it's T. Iginla and not Jerome. Like I know it's not going to happen, but if we see this final trade and Iginla's in the return, and maybe it's like maybe they gave up more than Weegar. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens here. Obviously, we have no idea at this point.
All right, we're gonna wait as more and more news comes through. I want to kick this off with anyone else. I want to kick off. Actually, let's wait for anyone else. Let's play this clip from Patrick Alvin. This is the other one that's getting some attention. Patrick Alvin asked about Elias Pettersson, and I'd say an interesting answer. I'm curious to get your thoughts as well, Harm. Let's hear it.
I don't think his production is where he wants to be or where we want to be. I do think that he's been working on his two-way game. I think he stretches where he has played really well two-way hockey. But again, a player like that, you know that he's capable of so much more where his talent level is. And whatever he expressed to you guys, I'm not sure that I believe that he was probably pretty honest in saying that his game wasn't where he wanted to be. That being said, it's easy to say that you're going to be better, but what are you actually going to do to be better? And I think that the action is something we want to see. We want to see the players working with it. And for Elias, I mean, it's all starting by being prepared and pushing himself every day to get better. There is no doubt about his talent level. We've seen that, but hopefully he finds it and hopefully continue to work on it.
I'm not. I shouldn't say I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. Does that make sense?
It's
But
an honest answer.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything about it that makes you go, whoa, I'm shocked to hear him say that. But
Exactly.
there is a tone of, I think, frustration you can sense. And clearly, if you're highlighting and reiterating, hey, we know the talent is there, and the just, hey, you've been saying it, but now your actions need to back it up in terms of getting better.
That part, yeah.
That hints at a level of frustration. And again, I understand that. It's honest. You should be frustrated if you're the Vancouver Canucks with the situation, but also for him to, again, at the end, tie it back into the day-to-day process of pushing yourself and preparation, that again just makes me think that the organization, whether you agree with them or not, but at least in the organization's mind, it doesn't seem like they're thrilled with, or at least believe that he's going 110% and doing everything in his power to be the best player possible. Because there are other situations where a team, and obviously not with a contract of this stature necessarily, but you'll have a player in a team where the player is clearly overpaid, but it's more a situation where like the production's fallen off a cliff, but the team still backs the player very intently because they can see he's doing everything he can do. And this is just a talent related thing where the skill just isn't there, age related decline. The way I interpret that response, I sense a GM that still thinks there's more that Pettersson can be doing to drive and push himself to that higher level.
Like you said, that was the line that did it for me. Was that's great you're saying it. Let's see you do it. Because, yeah, you hear that from us, you hear that from JPat, but hearing it from the GM, yeah, that's new. That's new. And also, let's be honest, a lot of the times when they talk about Elias Pettersson, the kid gloves are very firmly on, right? Like they've definitely tried the positive reinforcement, even though the results aren't there. Seems like they've decided that ain't working. And yeah, Patrick Alvin, pretty honest in his criticism of Elias Pettersson today. I don't think there's anything, like I was waiting in the chat for someone to come in and be like, this is crazy. I can't believe he would do this. No one's really surprised. Brian Arthur said, I can't believe people still defend Petey. I'm not seeing any Petey quote unquote defenders in the chat today. And people just agreeing that he probably just needs a new environment. It's tough, but kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, and comments like that make me more likely to think that all right, if in the organization's mind, again, whether or not it's actually the reality of the situation, at least the organization's perception over the last couple of years seems to be that he could be doing more to prepare himself. Whether it's summer training, whether it's practicing off-ice habits, whatever it is, that seems to be, you read between the lines of the last couple of years, and even some of the stuff that Alvin and Tocchet have directly said, that's clearly the perception that the organization has. If that's your perception as a front office group, as an organization, and you're thinking about who do we want to lead and set the example, set the tone for the next core of young players, then that makes me more likely to think that they'll want to trade Pettersson in the summer just to get off of the contract and have a clean start, turn a new page, start resetting the culture. Again, I'm not saying I necessarily agree or disagree with that perception that the front office has regarding preparation, because I don't think it's as simple as, oh, if Pettersson was just working harder, he'd be back to being a 100-point player. I don't think it's that simple, but they're the decision makers at the end of the day. So their perception is what matters most. And the fact that there still seem to be some of those lingering concerns makes me think that they will be pretty open-minded about trying to move him in the offseason if there's a reasonable offer that comes across the table.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get to anyone else. Anyone else is a presentation of our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. They've got the arcade, the bar, and the street food menu. Make Greta your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, Jacob, you said we have an update on Weegar.
We do. No return yet. And actually, this trade isn't really necessarily close to happening. So Elliot Friedman 6 minutes ago, at this time, the proposal has been taken to Weegar. We await his decision. And in the case of Tyler Myers, we know how long it took him to make his decision. Weegar doesn't have quite as much time, obviously, with the deadline about 48 hours away. But yeah, so we might not actually have anything on this Weegar return, or if the trade even is going to happen, until closer to the actual trade deadline.
I'll also say this. The Weegar one in particular is interesting because he's at a down year. I don't know how much Flames hockey you guys have watched, but after years of being a true top pair caliber contributor, he's had a really rough year. Down from 47 points last year to 21 points in just 60 games. And crucially, he's had a really rough go of it defensively as well. I think some of the foot speed has slowed down with him. He's 32 years old, and he's still got a ton of term left. He's signed at a $6.25 million cap hit through 2031, so 5 more years. And so it's not a bad contract, but it is a risky contract. And so we'll see if the trade ultimately ends up going through and what the return ends up looking like. But if Weegar is able to command a decent return, it is just interesting to see a depreciating asset still have significant value. Now, it's different from the Canucks situation because with Garland and DeBrusk, we're talking about wingers, and wingers are just always valued at far less of a premium than right shot defenseman, even though Weegar has mostly played the left side. So that's an important distinction. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because the Flames found it easy to trade a declining defenseman with a lot of term left, that the Canucks will necessarily have an easier time extracting good value for Garland or DeBrusk. But it is at least something that I'm monitoring because, in my opinion, Weegar and Parayko are in different buckets despite being the same age and similar contract and headedness, where Parayko's actually maintained a really high level of play, whereas Weegar, he was in the same bucket up until this season, which has been a significant decline for him.
Wonder if it's the same thing where it's, oh, maybe we can get a lot more out of him. Because I was talking to someone from Dallas today. I'm going to be quoted in the newspaper in Dallas, Harm. Not to brag, but you will
Nice.
find me in the Dallas newspaper. Anyways, I was talking to him about Myers, and he was saying like they're definitely going to play him with Thomas Harley. Like he's definitely going to be Thomas Harley's defense partner. And he said, "How do you think of that fit?" And I was just explaining to him. One question I had was, "Well, what's the defensive zone system in Dallas?" And he said it's zone, and it's similar to what the Canucks did under Rick Tocchet. And I pointed out that, hey, like Tyler Myers was able to be hard matched against the Connor McDavid line in the playoffs, and he did fine in those minutes. The Canucks did not get caved in those minutes against Connor McDavid, and Hughes was able to go cook against other lines, or he should have been able to. He didn't because he sucks in the playoffs. But Myers was fine in those playoffs, and he was good in the zone defense, and he played well under Rick Tocchet. So I basically just said, like, how similar can you get the environment, the structured environment that the Canucks had under Tocchet to how similar can you get that if you're the Dallas Stars? And I think the answer I got was, yeah, it's going to be pretty damn similar. And I think you're going to see pretty good results if you're the Stars. And I think they must know that as well going into it.
Especially going through the Central Division, you're going up against two of the best 5-5 teams in the league in the Minnesota Wild in round one. And if you beat them in round one, likely the Colorado Avalanche. Against both of those teams, especially when you watch the Stars play this year and their underlying numbers have lagged at 5-5 at times, they're going to likely be in a situation where against Minnesota and potentially against Colorado, they're getting outshot and they're getting outchanced, and they don't have a lot of puck possession necessarily. Now their special teams are elite and they have game-breaking finishers. So you can imagine a lot of games where it's halfway through the third period, it's a 2-2 game and the shots are, I don't know, 25-15 in favor of Minnesota. But the point being, despite how stacked the Stars are on paper, just because of the opponents they're playing and them being a little bit weaker at 5-5 this year, there's probably going to be a lot of defending and a lot of time without the puck. And I was having this conversation with Dmitry Filipovich on the PDO cast earlier today. A lot of defensive zone style of play where you're having to defend down low, absorb shots, block shots, box out in front of the net, do a lot of the dirty, mucky stuff in front of the net to really white knuckle it and make sure that, all right, the other team might have a lot of puck possession and a lot of shots, but we need to keep things to the perimeter. That style Tyler Myers can fit well in. And yeah, so I do think he's going to be successful in Dallas, whether it's with Harley or even if they go toward using him with Esa Lindell, a lot of D-zone starts and just kind of throwing those guys to the wolves and understanding they're probably going to get caved in, just hope that the scoreboard damage isn't too bad. And then loading up Harley with Miro Heiskanen, which we've seen sometimes in the past. That's what we saw when they acquired Cody Ceci. They went to Lindell and Ceci. And I think Myers is a much better player than Cody Ceci.
Good take at the end there. I like that. I want to talk to you about Evander Kane, Harmon. We're going to do a full trade deadline preview show tomorrow, folks, so make sure you check that out. We'll also play Family Feud in the middle of our trade deadline preview show. Only Canucks combo, right? We'll play Family Feud tomorrow. We'll have Irf on the show, and we'll do a trade deadline preview. And I know one player we're going to talk about is Evander Kane. It's been suggested, and I kind of oversold it that Alvin said, like, it's hard to trade Evander Kane, but we've been hearing that there's not much of a market for Evander Kane. We've started to see some reporting suggesting that it might be a little difficult for the Canucks to trade Kane. So the question becomes, what happens if there's no market for Evander Kane, right? And I'm not even talking like, oh, the Canucks are going to have to give him up for a 6th or 7th round pick, right? That's not even what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is, if nobody will take Evander Kane, nobody will take that contract, what happens? If he wants to play playoff games and he wants to earn himself a contract beyond this season, remember he's a UFA, could we be heading for the territory of, hey, we're going to mutually agree to terminate this contract so that you can sign on with the team before the deadline, you stay eligible to play in the playoffs, and you get a chance to go play for league minimum, but you get a chance to prove yourself, because you're not going to get that chance playing out the stretch of the season in Vancouver.
Yeah, that is a legitimate possibility. it would be a catastrophic failure for the Canucks if that's what it came to, especially you think back to what that cap space, the opportunity cost of it, and what else it could have been allocated toward. And I wonder as well, the original decision to acquire Kane, how much of it was an order of operations thing where the Kane trade happened well before the market on July 1 opened. And I wouldn't be surprised if at that moment when they traded for Kane, they were thinking Brock Boeser's out the door. And whatever cap space we have left, the trade assets we have available to us, we're going to be looking to find a top 6 center. And we've heard Dollywall talk about how they took a run at Christian Dvorak, Mikael Granlund even, I believe. And then eventually they circled back on Brock. If they knew a week before July 1st open that, hey, the end result is going to be that we end up re-signing Brock Boeser anyway, I wonder if they even acquired Kane in the first place.
Yep. And what a disaster. What a disaster way for that to finish, right? Like, as we... Again, I'm saying if this happens, if that's how the Evander Kane chapter in Vancouver closes, it hasn't been good. And I mean, trading him for a 4th-round pick certainly also isn't great. But what a disaster it is if you're talking contract termination, so the guy has a chance to go play for a playoff team because nobody else in the league can be convinced to even take on that contract, even if you retain 50% of it. What a disaster! What a disaster that would be. And really, yeah, that acquisition. It's been a bit of a disaster in its own right. So it's one to monitor. It's one we'll be watching for down the stretch. Shout out to Tyson Cole, because he was the one that actually kind of put that on my radar. He wrote today over at Canucks Army, what does a good, bad, and ugly trade deadline look like for the Canucks? And I think that's going to be a question we answer mostly tomorrow. But I ask you this now, Harm. Over, under 3.5, Canucks have made one. I'm giving you another chance. You said over last time. You said over 3.5. Over, under 3.5. Canucks have already made one in Tyler Myers.
Well, hearing the Kane chatter, I think you're going to end up being right in terms of the Canucks not being able to move one of their pending UFAs.
Yeah.
Right? Blueger, I think quite clearly is going to have the most demand. But between Kane and Kemp, are they going to be able to move both of them?
Can I double down? Am I allowed to double down? Jacob, we all think I'm going to be right about them not being able to move all 3. Can you please update that prediction to the Canucks will move one of their UFAs?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by the way, I looked at my list here because there's a few things that we have to check off. So first off, you said a long time ago that Teddy Blueger would still be a Canuck after the deadline. And then later on, you said one of Kampf or Blueger is still here at the deadline. And now you're saying only one of Kampf, Blueger, and Kane.
By all of that. I stand by all of that.
So like, look, if they trade Kane only, then you've hit on 3 of those right there. You also, there's also a few other ones that at the end of the show we'll go over because they don't pertain to this. But yes, I will update and say only one UFA gets traded.
Thank you. I'm going to say over 3.5. I still think they'll move.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
How does that work? Explain your logic, because you only think one of the pending UFAs is going to be traded. So that's 1, and then Myers is 2. So you think 2 more deals are going to happen?
I'm sorry. When I said over 3.5, my brain went to 3. I thought 3. Okay, I'm taking under. I think exactly 3. I think they're gonna trade Connor Garland. I don't know. We heard all sorts of chatter yesterday about the New York Islanders, the Boston Bruins. We already dove into that on the show. But there seems to be enough interest, enough smoke around Connor Garland that you would think that they would pull the trigger on a deal. Again, is the market going to be that different at the draft? Because then you're just days away from him holding all the cards and having a no move clause. He knows you wanted to get rid of him, right? Like, he knows you wanted to have these conversations. So I don't know if he's going to be exactly doing a lot of favors for the Canucks post July 1. So I think the not pressure, but the incentive for the Canucks to move Connor Garland has been high, as we've pointed out, and they should be looking to move a guy with term. He's one of their only valuable trade chips. Yeah, I think you have to. I think you've got to try to trade Connor Garland before the trade deadline. Again, if there's enough smoke, sometimes there's fire. So I'll say it's Garland. Myers already gone, and then one of the UFAs will get traded, and I think it stops at that. It stops at 3. But maybe I don't know. Do you think Lucas Reichel could find a home? I'm saying over.
Pending UFA, but yeah, like
I'm saying over. I'm saying over.
Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to trace the logic because you are originally you said under 3.5 earlier when we first talked about this a couple days ago. Since then, you are
they've made it
more bearish. Well, yeah, but you're also more bearish in the UFAs getting traded, and yet now you've pivoted to them hitting the over.
Yep. You're right. The vibes change, man. Something's coming. Something different is gonna come. And it should. Like 3.5. Look, here's the way to put it. You know how we were talking like, oh, if you don't trade your UFAs, that's a failure, right? If they come out and say, hey, nobody wanted Evander Kane, we terminated his contract, our bad. That was a bad trade. We're gonna, give him crap, obviously. But if you say that, and then you also say, and we just couldn't find a taker for Connor Garland. We just couldn't find a taker for Drew O'Connor. So our deadline work starts and ends at Tyler Myers and Teddy Bluger or David Kampf, whichever one of the UFAs, right? If that's what you come out and say, that's a failure. But if you come out and say, yeah, nobody wanted Kane, nobody wanted David Kampf, a few people wanted Teddy Bluger, whatever it is, whatever they come out and say is the reason for they can only trade one of their pending UFAs, they said, but we were really happy to find a home for Tyler Myers. We were really happy to be able to move off of Connor Garland and get that second round pick back. We were really happy to be able to move out Drew O'Connor as well. All in all, we think it was a good deadline. There you go. All of a sudden, I think you're looking at a pretty solid deadline for this team, even though they couldn't move off those UFAs. I think over 3.5.
I'm sticking to over. That was my original prediction. However, the Kane stuff does make me a little bit nervous. I will say, I hope that they are open-minded around the idea of Drew O'Connor, especially because he's one of the only players they're selling that is actually having a really good season. He's up to 14 goals in 60 games. And you just think about, he's a 6'4" forward that is a really high-end skater, great forechecker, pretty responsible defensively. Like, that's the kind of piece that teams would have interest in. And when I look at some of the players yesterday that Nashville sold, and I'm particularly thinking about, like, McCarron went for a second round pick, which I thought was excessive. I thought McCarron's value would be more in the third, fourth round pick territory. He's ultimately, even though he's a right shot center with size and PK ability, ultimately a fourth line caliber player. But then even to see Cole Smith fetch a third round pick, and he's a pending UFA, 10 points in 42 games. He's a good forechecker, but hasn't had anywhere near the offensive success that O'Connor has had, similar size. If Cole Smith is worth a third round pick, like, is there a world where you can get a second round pick for Drew O'Connor? Because if a team offers me a second round pick for Drew O'Connor and it's a destination that with O'Connor's limited trade protection you can send him to, I'd consider selling high on him. Absolutely. Now, the difference between Smith and O'Connor is that player like Smith, $1 million AAV, O'Connor's at 2.5. So I'm curious if the 2.5, even though it's a totally fair number for the player, it like diminishes. I don't want to say diminishes his value, but makes it harder to get a second round pick for him.
The number of teams interested might be decreasing.
Yeah, like if O'Connor made a $1 million against the cap, the number of teams that would be lining up, to pay a second round pick for him, it'd be endless. Whereas at 2.5, it's okay. That's still a pretty good contract, but it's definitely a more expensive ticket. And so at that price, there's still going to be interest, but then does the valuation decrease a little bit? I think you at least stay open-minded on O'Connor. Not saying you have to move him ahead of this year's deadline, because you can always keep him, hold him through the first half of next season. If he has a decent year, retain on him then, and then trade him, right? Like if the offer is a third round pick, I'm not trading Drew O'Connor because I can probably get that for him as a rental next year anyway. It's more, hey, if you want to get him for 2 playoff runs and you want to pay a little bit of a premium to jump the queue, then yeah, I would hope the Canucks are open-minded about that.
Kiefer Sherwood. Oh, wait, we got a super chat. It's from Walk. It's for 279. He said the right defenseman trades show the Canucks have to trade Hronek. Hey, we went over it. We appreciate the donation. We went over it. Like, if you're in a scenario, even if you're not in a scenario where you draft Keaton Verhoff, right? You have to at least think about it. Don't rush to name the guy captain. Just relax. Take a deep breath. This isn't going to get done overnight. You've got time to think about this. You don't have to trade Philip Hronek today. You don't even have to trade him this offseason, but just keep your options open. Don't trade a third captain, right? Like, you traded Horvat, you traded Quinn Hughes. You're going to name Philip Hronek captain and then maybe be in a position where you have to trade him. Don't trade 3 captains. Come on now. Yeah, thank you for the donation, Walk. We appreciate it. RJ in the chat said Quads doesn't want to be here today. That's not it. I am checking my phone repeatedly because people are seeing me, like, as you're talking, like, glance over this way to look at my phone. It's because there's lots happening, guys. Like, I'm trying to keep an eye on things, make sure we don't miss anything. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here today. Let me be clear about that. Kiefer Sherwood, Harm. Kiefer Sherwood gets the 5-year deal at $5.75 million. Jay Fresh had a really funny tweet about this because Kiefer Sherwood had a multi-point night last night. Scores the game-winning goal in the dying moments of the game as well. Hadn't been great for Kiefer Sherwood so far in San Jose, but has the big game last night. The next day, signed to the long-term deal, $5.75 million. And honestly, I don't know if this is accurate, but someone said that what he's going to make annually now is higher than his entire career earnings to this point in his career. I think
that's not true. That's not true. Just
How
based
off?
on, not far off, but it's not like because even when he was on his ELC playing in Colorado and Anaheim, I think Anaheim and time in Nashville. I'll do the math.
He wasn't in the NHL for all of those times.
I know he wasn't, but also, like, he's still making money in the American League. I'll try and find the actual number.
That's only like 70K or whatever.
70K prorated, Jacob.
Yeah, I'll find the number, but I think the fact that it's close is really, like, even if it's not 100% true, the fact that it's close is still pretty wild.
I'm trying to do the math right now. 1.5 over the last 2 years, so 3. Well, he hasn't earned all of that yet, so let's say like 2.75. I think this is right. Like, Jacob, I actually think this is right, dude.
Okay, well, he 23-24. He was
playing AHL games in 22-23. He played half a season with that, not even a full half a season.
He did,
so
but
he
also
even made $600K that year.
On his actual first entry level deal, he was making 9.25. He played 50 games with Anaheim in 18-19. And I don't think he spent very much time in the AHL. Then parts of the next 4 seasons in the NHL.
Like 10 games a season.
10, 16, 11, 32. Then he played a full season with Nashville at 7.75. And
those contracts are $750K, not $925.
Yeah, you know what? It's pretty close. I'd have to actually I'd have to do like the prorated math on it.
I think there are slightly different numbers for cap wages in Puckpedia. Okay. Puckpedia has his estimated career earnings at $5.16 million. Cap wages has his estimated career earnings at $4.85
so
million. So both are below.
Yeah, that would make it below. Yeah, that's right there, the estimated career earnings.
And
now,
the other thing also,
if you finish, if when he finishes this season on the current contract, like, it'll still be less based on that.
The other thing to mention is some of those were 2-way deals too, right? Like correct, the second contracts he signed, so he was making a good salary in the minors later on. So
that is correct. Yes.
Shout out to Kiefer Sherwood. That's the main point of this. Is just shout out to Kiefer Sherwood. Dude worked hard. He took the opportunity in Vancouver because he thought he had more to give and that he could do what he's now done, right? Like, he thought he could do this. I'm so happy for Kiefer Sherwood. Just massive shout out to Kiefer Sherwood.
Yeah, and look, there's sticker shock when you see 5.75 times 5. I think I'm curious to see how the rest of the market evolves in free agency this summer with the rising cap, does this end up being an isolated kind of situation? Do we see sticker shock with a bunch of free agent contracts this coming summer? The other point I'd make is if there's one team that is actually positioned to be able to justify slightly overpaying for Sherwood, it's the San Jose Sharks. For next season, even after accounting for this Sherwood contract, according to cap wages, they've got $48.8 million in cap space. So they would have needed to spend a bunch of money just to hit the cap floor for next season, especially because they have Carey Price, who's on season-ending injured reserve for them, on the books this year, but he officially comes off the books next year. Plus, they've got some other pieces as well, like I think Letty and some others. Laurent Brossois is buried down. They've got a bunch of expiring dead money, essentially, that they would have needed to spend a bunch for next season anyway.
All right. Anything else from either of you?
Yeah, we have to do our Tankathon.
Oh,
I heard yesterday went wonderfully.
yeah. Florida jumps up to number. Yeah, ridiculous. All right, run it, Jacob.
All right.
Maybe the vibes will be better today
Yeah.
because they got a decent return for Myers.
Exactly. On the day that they moved Tyler Myers, I mean, St. Louis and possibly Calgary have also traded defensemen today, and they're right up there, but we'll see what happens. All right, the Wednesday edition of Canucks Conversation, the Tankathon. Here's our draft lottery sim. Ooh, pretty bad. Very
Rangers
bad.
won. The Kings jump up 8 spots to number 2. And the Canucks are third.
Two teams that have picked first and second in recent years in New York and LA, and Vancouver falls to 3.
Why do we put this nightmare fuel out? Why do we do this? Whose idea was this?
I don't know, but we're sticking to it. Honestly, like, I know that the math says Vancouver picking third is the most likely outcome, but it just feels like if that's the case, it's like St. Louis or Calgary who moves up, right? The other worst teams. Constantly seeing like the Rangers and the Florida Panther, or sorry, not the Rangers, the Kings and the Florida Panthers, teams that have been in the playoffs like every year for the last however many seasons. Seeing those teams move up, or Winnipeg, those ones sting a little.
The Rangers can get lost, honestly.
Yeah, them too.
Guys,
but
they ended up winning the number 2 pick. They ended up, which they took Kakko, the number 1 pick, which they took Lafreniere. Didn't develop either guy into anything useful. Adam Fox literally just decided, hey, I don't want to play anywhere except the New York Rangers. You get a Norris Trophy defenseman for free. All these gifts. Artemi Panarin chose you in free agency. He was a top 10 winger in the league. All these free gifts. The idea of them getting another lottery, more lottery luck and drafting top 3 again, it's just like, come on. You've gotten too many handouts.
no notes.
Chat wants you to spin it again, Jacob. I feel like that's against the rules.
No, we can't do it again.
Not officially, but I can do an unofficial off screen.
Can we? Do you mind?
I just did one unofficially off screen, and New Jersey moved up to second. So there you go. We're not the extra spin did nothing. Yeah, Canucks are third again. St. Louis, New Jersey, Vancouver.
Okay. No more of this. Write it down.
No.
The first one.
Yes,
I actually want to have I want to have the data ahead of the actual draft lottery of what did it actually end up.
Yeah, I'm tracking everything, Harm. Don't worry.
I'm looking
Tracking everything.
at my ping pong balls too. So
now before we move on, Quads, I said we'd come back to my list here of things you told me to write down.
oh yeah.
So we still have the Pettersson over 80 or under 60 points. That one, that one could hit.
It's gonna hit. He might not get 50 points this year. Dude's at 35.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It might be under 50. Yeah, it's definitely gonna hit.
Nailed that.
Then the Askarov under 900 and Wallstedt high, and then Wallstedt higher than Askarov in Calder voting.
Yeah.
I think Harm's connection.
No, never mind. Keep going.
There we go. Yeah. A great time for his connection to cut out for a second.
Tolopilo higher than Askarov. That's happening too.
Tolopilo higher save percentage than Askarov. The Kraken make the playoffs. They're
That's going to come down to the wire.
It's going to come right down to the wire, but they could make the playoffs.
I've got a lot here.
And I was having this conversation with someone. It's like, it almost feels like the Kraken need to make the playoffs. You had the Mariners go to Game 7 of the ALCS. You had the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. And probably by the time that the playoffs start, you're going to have the NBA announcing expansion, and Seattle is going to be involved in that. The Kraken are going to find themselves like in a rough spot if they miss the playoffs again.
You need to get a market share in Seattle.
Yeah.
That's just how Seattle sports works. Like you need to put your flag down.
Yeah, and so it's huge. And then even like the Sounders, I think they won one of the other competitions this year. Like the Kraken are in danger of being like bottom of the barrel with a bullet in Seattle if they don't make the playoffs. So that'll be an interesting one. You have Canucks will be Evander Kane's last NHL team.
Oh, I should have said on this contract.
Well, but I mean that wasn't the point. I remember you ranting how no one was going to want him at the deadline. You did say that, but then you also said no one was going to sign him in free agency afterwards.
Yeah.
You have Chris Drury will be fired before the draft.
And
I
don't know about that one.
Yeah, and the Rangers retool will be a full rebuild, which that one I think is just ambiguous with the wording anyways.
Yeah.
Finally, Blueger will be a Canuck after the deadline. One of Kampf Blueger is still here after the deadline. Only one pending UFA traded. Those are all kind of different ways of saying the same thing. And one that is actually a loss and we can remove here. Latvia gets 2 wins at the Olympics. They won 1.
No.
So unfortunately, that one's an L. But some interesting ones on here though.
Pretty good so far. Pretty good.
I'm batting like 950. Pretty good. All right, someone asked for a Quads learns to skate update. I'm in full gear now. I should have sent you the picture, Jacob. You were with me. I'm in full gear now. I'm feeling pretty good. Yesterday I got some pointers on my shot and I've changed the way I'm shooting and the puck is going a lot harder off my stick now. So it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
All I changed, I'll show you. Kids at home. All I changed was how I hold the stick. And basically what I do now, as I pull up my beautiful stick from Epic's Hockey here, all I do now is instead of holding the stick like a baseball bat, which is kind of like just instead of just holding it like this or holding it like this or whatever, I'm now holding it with my thumb on that side of the stick. Like my thumb is like that. And then I'm thinking about rotating that wrist and like flicking it down kind of, if that makes sense. And pushing into the ice. That was the other pointer I got that really helped.
That's how you shoot a hockey puck. Exactly.
Well,
hell yeah.
That's what I learned yesterday. So yeah, hockey's fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I can stop now pretty confidently. On one side though, I can't stop on my right. I can only stop I'm like Atu Ratu when he first got here. He only wanted to stop on one side. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm joking. I'm not actually where Atu Ratu is at. It's just that there were a few times where it's like, it would have been better for him to stop on that side, but he chose to go that way. And right now I'm at that point where I'm like, I want to stop on one side. I ain't stopping on my right, but I'll get there. But yeah, hockey's fun. Hockey's been a lot of fun to learn how to play. And yeah, I'm in full gear. It's been really good. All right,
let's go. I can't wait until you're in beer league and track the beer league statistics and all that.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna do some content probably this off season. Like we'll get out there, you'll come with us, we'll get on the ice and do like a skills competition or something. And yeah,
I've got so many ideas for that content.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a ton of fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. All right, anything else?
I think I'm good.
All right, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. Well, what did I take yesterday, Harm? It was an NHL bet.
I think you took Wild home underdogs and they beat the Lightning.
Yes, they did. I've been on one lately. What was the score of that game? Oh,
I watched it. It was wide. It was a wide margin.
You've been picking the Wild a lot too. They seem to be your hot team.
Yeah, 5-1. My goodness. See, the Stars beat the doors off the Flames too, 6-1.
Yeah,
just like they did the Canucks. Wow. All right, tonight. Looking for a home underdog. Home underdogs are my favorite. The Canucks are a pretty heavy home underdog at plus 260 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes are the -320 favorite. Those are wide odds. Wow. All right, let's go to. It's even here. It's even, but I'm going to go with it. The Anaheim Ducks are at home to the New York Islanders. I'm going to take Ducks money line at -110 odds. You can get that over at Bet365, whatever your bet is. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we'll be back tomorrow, folks, to preview the trade deadline, but we will wrap it up there. For my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Butrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every